welcome to the Narrowing Path, walking the spiritual walk. My name is Stephen Einstein. Thank y'all for joining me today as we go ahead and we do June 14th reading from James Allen's Daily Meditation. And I really, yesterday's took a while for it to really sink in concept. And it's not that I didn't intellectually understand it, but just the truth of it that um, can sometimes uh, um, take a while for myself. Anyway, and to honestly believe that that is true, that we have to turn not to the material world to get our sense of fulfillment and satisfaction with life, but to the spiritual world and part of that infinite, that great infinite, as something that rings true for me in my life. So I'm grateful for yesterday's reading. And so we're going to go ahead and do June 14th. This will be fresh to you and fresh to me, meaning this will be the first time I hear it or read it right here on this podcast with y'all. So you'll get my genuine response, reactions, observations, and of course, what I relate to about the reading. So here we go. This is June 14th from James Allen Daily Meditations. Enter into perfect harmony with eternal law, which is wisdom, love, and peace. This divine state is and must ever be incomprehensible to the merely personal. Personality, separateness, selfishness are one and the same, the antithesis of wisdom and divinity. By the unqualified surrender of the personality, separateness and selfishness cease. The man enters into the possession of his divine heritage of immortality and infinity. Such surrender of the personality is the one supreme blessing, the only real and lasting gain. The mind, unenlightened upon the inner laws of being and upon the nature and destiny of its own life, clings to transient appearances, things that have in them no enduring substantiality, and so clinging perishes for the time being amid the shattered wreckage of its own illusions. Love is universal, supreme, all sufficing. This is the realization of selfless love. And there we go. That is worded beautifully. And the first time I heard about this concept, it took me back. I didn't quite understand it. And I now know it was because I didn't want to let go of my personality. Um, uh, which might sound weird. And I can understand that because it was odd to me. But there's so much truth to this. What we're talking about here is letting that ego die, letting that desire to be this unique individual, this one of a kind person, is all just ego and pride and self-centered and selfishness. That's what amazes me, I think. Or that's something that's really um been difficult for me to wrap my head around. But after I finally understood that me clinging to what I defined as my personality was really just me clinging to my ego, me clinging to something outside of me to still give me value, right? It was, my name is Steve Van Einstein, and I want you to know who that is. And that person is this, right? He has this intelligent level, this attractiveness, this income, right? He's this type of funny. He knows about these things. These were parts of my personality, right? I was more concerned with personality than my character. And when I had built my character defects into my personality, my selfishness, my self-centeredness, my vanity, my pride, my jealousy and envy, my wrath. The seven deadly sins are kind of what I'm going through right now, honestly, but because most relate down to that. But all of it comes back to just thinking about me and acting upon my own solely soul interests, self-centered interests. So I love this reading. It's a reminder. It's a reminder to me that I can cling to anything, even a concept I've built for myself of myself that I try to step into and emulate in an unhealthy way, right? So, um, let's go back through this. The first line: enter into perfect harmony with the eternal law, which is wisdom, love, and peace. Wisdom, love, and peace. What great character qualities to have. What great things to be gifted with, to have brought into your life by living a spiritual way of life, by walking that narrow path, that what this podcast is named after. That and living a spiritual way of life. You're graced with. I've become graced with a little bit of wisdom, love, and peace and serenity. I didn't know I could. I didn't know that was possible for me. Really. So I love that. Entered in perfect harmony with the eternal law, which is wisdom, love, and peace. When you start living spiritually, you'll start aligning with those things. And that's been my honest experience. I can say that truthfully today. And that's kind of amazing. So here we go. This is the main body of the reading. This divine state is, and must ever be, incomprehensible to the merely personal. Interesting way to put that. The divine state is merely The divine state is to the merely personal. Excuse me. The divine state is incomprehensible to the merely personal. Because when you take things personally, when you're still living in that false ego, when you're still living with that false presentation of self, you can't actually live in a way that lines up with that eternal law, with wisdom, love, and peace. Because you're trying to be somebody you aren't. You're trying to present a character that you believe you defined yourself by. You know how much freedom there is to letting that character go, to letting that ego go? You know how much authenticity there is behind that? Do you know how much genuine character will show up when you let that person go? When you stop fitting the narrative for yourself that you've created and you strive to be an ideal, have an ideal character rather than an ideal personality. Very big difference. Very, very big difference. Personality, separateness, selfishness are one and the same, and the antithesis of wisdom and divinity. That's it. That's what I was just talking about before we really dug into this was personality. How that separates us truly. That's a wall between us and the rest of the world, and that's a wall between us and God, us and source or creator, the universe, whatever you'd like to call it. Allah, you know, yeah. Our personality, our concept of ourselves blocks us from who we truly are, and and blocks us from others as well. By the unqualified surrender of the personality, meaning full surrender, unqualified, not okay, if you give me this, I will surrender my personality. Just gone, let it go. Let it go. Let go of the things you try to define yourself by. Let it all go. Separateness and selfishness cease by the unqualified surrender of the personality. Separateness and selfishness cease. because it's no longer the character of you. It's truly you engaging with other people and engaging with the world and engaging with that power greater than yourself. And the man enters into the possession of his divine heritage of immortality and infinity. The blessings we rob ourselves of by clinging to our pride, by clinging to our fear, really. I think a lot of that ego and the personality that we latch onto so dearly is fear of not knowing, but also fear of what I want to be remembered. What if people forget about me? What if people don't know who I am? How can they know who you are when you don't? Very real question I had to ask myself. You're worried about being forgotten. I was worried about being forgotten. But first, I'd have to be known. And I was never known, but my characters might have been. A whole different world. And we get that divine heritage of immortality and infinity. We are attached. We are dependent. We are aligned with this infinite, eternal power, rather than just the opinion someone has of a false character we gave. It sounds so petty or so small when I think about it now. It sounds so insignificant. I would present a character for one person's opinion of me. That's incredible, isn't it? Um, I believe that's absolutely insane. When I would be betraying myself and betraying that that yearning I have in my own chest to be connected to somebody, to be connected to that higher power, that God, that energy, that source. Such surrender of the personality is the one supreme blessing, the only real and lasting gain. Because when you fully surrender that, when you fully let that go out of your hands, and trust me, it can manifest again. You can start defining yourself by this, by that, by the other thing, by a whole new set of characteristics or defining qualities, and you didn't even realize your ego was coming back again. You know, surrendering the idea of your own personality, right, and allowing yourself to just be and letting your character shine through by practicing this way of life is such a blessing. He goes on here to say, the mind unenlightened upon the inner laws of being and upon the nature and destiny of its own life clings to the transient appearances, things which have in them no enduring substantiality, and so clinging perishes for the time being amid the shattered wreckage of its own illusions. Wow, what a statement. So the unenlightened mind, um, the mind in ignorance, the ignorant mind, which is not condemning. There's many things, many people that are ignorant. It's not a negative quality about them, that people just don't know what they don't know. Right? The mind unenlightened upon the inner laws of being. So the mind ignorant to the spiritual world, the mind ignorant to a spiritual way of living, and ignorant to the nature and destiny of its own life, the destiny to realign with your soul and your spirit with that power greater than ourselves, right? The unenlightened mind will cling to the transient appearances. You have to look a certain way, right? I am this character. I have to dress this way. I have to act this way. I have to talk this way. I have to walk this way. I have to drive this car. I have to have these people in my life. I have to hang out at these locations because we've grasped onto an identity outside of ourselves, and we're grasping onto it for dear life, dug in, because we think that's who we are. But it's not true. You can sacrifice that. It's exhausting to play a character all the time, a character in your own life. Clings to transient appearances, things which have in them no enduring substantiability. Everything's temporary, like we've talked about. Everything's here for a moment. And we try to have that define who we are instead of our character by being aligned with the God of our understanding. And so clinging perishes for the time being amid the shattered wreckage of its own illusion. So once we shatter that illusion of the ego, once we understand it's all things we have brought in and defined ourselves by, it all falls apart. I was so scared when I got sober to actually start telling the truth, because not necessarily because of judgment. Well, sometimes it was because of that, but more so because I knew in that dam, when I pulled one brick, the rest of the dam would come down. When I unwove one lie, the rest of the dam would come down, and I guess waters of truth would come flowing through, and I would know that I was wrong. I would know that I did things wrong. I would know that I've hurt people, and I couldn't. And it took a lot for me to be willing to accept those consequences. It was painful for me. So amid the shattered wreckage of its own illusion, that was the dam coming down. That's little pieces of the life that I deluded myself into thinking was me doing the best I could, or was the only way it was to live, and little pieces of who I thought I was. So very powerful. Just the strength in this reading was just incredible. It ends with this: love is universal, supreme, all sufficing. This is the realization of selfless love. That's what we get. That's what we turn to: love, righteousness, goodness, from that God of our understanding. That's what flows into us. That's what we are connected to when we let this ego go, when we let this personality go, when we let this character we've presented to the world our whole lives. A lot of us, for our whole life, it's been there. So when we stop that, we find love and wisdom and peace. And it's a beautiful life. So that's where we're ending it today, though. Thank you all for jumping on with me and taking a listen. Thank you to everybody that's been jumping in and here, listening to the podcast. I greatly, greatly appreciate it. I hope everyone's enjoying it. If you'd like, you can go over and give us a like or a follow on the Facebook page. It's The Narrowing Path, Walking the Spiritual Walk. It's on Facebook. And we will go from there. So I'll be back tomorrow with June 15th reading. Until next time, thanks.